India, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. I know there are people joining from many parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, it's a great day for me to welcome someone very young, dynamic, versatile. I repeat, young, dynamic, versatile. Dr. Himanshu Rai, Director of IIM Indore, to this primetime leadership excellence series called New DNA of Leadership. Welcome, Dr. Rai.
Thank you so much.
My honor to introduce such a great education excellence leader to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. When you look at him, he is a smart, handsome dude, I can say. And above all, his smile is infectious. Dr. Rai is the director presently of IIM Indore, making waves, doing things which nobody has earlier done. Before that, he was professor of IIM Lucknow, where he taught from 2016 to 2014, and again joined back in 2016. He was also the dean of MISB Bocconi and professor of SDA Bocconi, Milan, Italy. Earlier, he had a stint with Acceleri Jamshedpur. As the convener of CAT 2010, he successfully led the largest change in world's test history, exceeding all global standards of testing. He has held the positions of HRM Group, admissions, corporate communication, media relations, executive program at IIM Lucknow. He obtained his doctorate from IIM Ahmedabad, making seminal contribution to the area of conflict resolution and negotiation. His profile includes a lot of work what he has done over the years, and he had a stint with Tata Steel in the beginning. He has consulted many organizations, including World Bank, Planning Commission of India, International Finance Corporation, UP State, Road Transport Corporation, Mahindra and Mahindra, Hero Honda. His consultancies included structural planning, HR interventions, organization restructuring, and development. He has received NTSC scholarship and Infosys fellowship. He's published many journals and books, and his current area of research include at that time negotiation HRM issues. He believes that the best can be achieved through quality education. And as rightly said by even Padma Shri Pritam Singh when he was on my webinar before we lost him, he said, countries are not built by weapons. Countries are not destroyed by weapons. Countries are destroyed by poor quality of education. And here is a focus of this great man into quality education. He decided to enter academics and went on to pursue his doctorate with IIM Ahmedabad. He frequently trains a lot of people around the world. He has trained around 20,000 professionals on various subjects, be it at Lal Bahadur National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, to develop training modules for ethics and anti-corruption strategies. For Indian Administrative Services, training of trainers on negotiation skills for faculty and senior management, IAS officers, workshops on crisis leadership, workshops on creating sustainable performance at dealership, negotiation skills, leadership and communication skills in dozen organizations in India and abroad. Huge list of publications to his credit. Himanshu looks to yoga as means to balance body, mind, and the spirit. He's also introduced his students to basic of ancient Indian discipline through various workshops. He, in fact, considers that Himalayas is spirit about and passionate about mountaineering and trekking. He treks at Himalayas, and you can regularly see his posts on this. A great personality, and latest news is just 2 days back, he has been appointed as independent director to the board of Malcolm India, which is leading PE brand in 50 countries. And he has just been, just 2 days back, this news came. Dr. Himanshu says, good leaders do things that are worth writing about. Good thinkers write things that are worth reading. Teachers have to do both. Beautiful. Now, the difference between a business leader and an education leader is giving. There is power in action, words and thoughts, if you know how to wield it. Dr. Rai says, always remember, there are three things if you want true happiness. You can disagree with people and yet be nice to them. You can make a mistake and yet be kind to yourself. Getting angry is an instinct. Staying angry is a choice. Therefore, be kind to others and to yourself. Dr. I says, nothing is more contagious than laughter. Wow, what a beautiful one. It is free medicine and it gives you the right wrinkles. It makes life feel better, and it's language in the same across cultures, across colors, across nationalities, across religions. So laugh out loud today, live free, live with laughter. I can keep on saying it, but one word is very important. He always says that ethics is all about making the right choices. Even if you have the power or the right to do anything that you wish to do, ethical yardsticks will tell you what is the right thing to do. And no yardstick comes even close to your own conscience. Listen to your conscience and you will never go wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to say. I can keep on talking about him. But then, we need to move forward because we have a short time. Such a busy man. Dr. I welcome you to my show, and it's indeed pleasure. Again, with such a profound background. While I will have some questions for you from my side, I will be requesting the audiences on various platforms to put up their questions. And once I am through in next 35, max 40 minutes, because I have listed a lot of questions in my mind for you, then I will take questions from them. And those who will be on Zoom will certainly ask on their own. I will unmute them. The rest, I will pick up some questions from.
Sure.
And my subject today is new DNA of leadership. And why new DNA of leadership? Dr. Rai, there are a couple of signature programs which I have done across the world in 17, 18 countries. Roadmap to Success, which finally 2019 October, Padma Shri Pritam Singh made it Roadmap to Sustainable Success. This is almost 25 years program, National HRT Network, All India Management Institution, and I took it forward to the global world. And Padma Shri Pritam Singh and Dr. Kiran Bedi, two of my mentors, have been always there whenever I do a public program here or even in Asia Pacific. Then I have another program called DNA of Leadership, which is again Dr. Bedi's, without fail being my inaugural keynote speaker. And when I was finalizing this series, so I talked to one of my dear friend, well-known name in India, Sakalin Siddiqui, the Maruti Suzuki guy. He said, let's create a new DNA of leadership because COVID, BC, DC, and AC. Now, BC is a history. DC, where we are now during COVID, we are already struggling, but we are coming out, and we don't know when the AC will come. DK, there will be a need of a new DNA because the capabilities what were in January 2020 probably are not today relevant in November 2020, and probably in 21, January may not be relevant at all. So having said that, so he said, so let's get into new DNA of leadership. And third one, I have got a signature program called One Dream, One Team, very well-known program around the world. And one more is Romancing with Your Destiny. I'm a little mad about doing my things. So today when I'm talking about new DNA of leadership, I have 3-4 areas from you. I am very keen to know about your journey of excellence as in one of the action-oriented. I look at you as action-oriented leader. Second, I want to know about your mentors, what leadership traits learnings you got from mentors. Third, I'm very keen on throwing some light on ethics, which is a very important perspective. Even if COVID does not teach us to be ethical, then I don't know what will give human being to be thinking about it. And then some messages to my leaders. So this program is not only today, this will keep on going on YouTube and Facebook and all that. People will start commenting, talking, and it's a continued process. And I would like to inform you, Dr. Rai, that I will be coming out with a digital book in mid of this program, somewhere in maybe April, May, because this series will go to December 2021. And the digital book will go to the world, and then another digital book finally will be December 21. So whatever we are talking today is going to be somewhere some learnability for many people around the world who are watching you or who are going to be watching you later. That is the entire concept, sir. So let me begin. Can I begin, sir, with your permission?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dr. Rai, we all know you're a very successful education leader who impacted many businesses, stakeholders, directors, employees, dealers, distributors, governing bodies of companies, institutions where you worked for. You are a brand in yourself. But before I go to that, I would like to see you as a child. We all born in the same way around the world, different places, different parents. And how has this journey as a child, as a student been, and today to that level of business education leader? I'll be very keen that myself and audience gets to know about you as a child and as a student.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me over here, Mr. Bakshi. And your question is is something that I would like to look at from two lenses. Because when you ask me about my journey as a child, allow me to assure you that I'm still a child. And I have not let the child inside me die or become old. And I think all of us should make sure that we keep that child in us alive, that child who has the curiosity to know more, that child who does not need a reason to be happy, and the child who's not afraid to dream. So, fortunately, as I said, the child in me is still alive, and I'm hoping that the child in me stays until I die. And therefore, I'll slightly change the question and I'll talk about my childhood rather than being a child, because as I said, the child is still there. So, my childhood, I was born in this place called Kanpur to a set of very diverse parents. So, my father was the first person to come out of a village, a very small village in eastern UP. And my mother came from a family who had migrated to India in 1947 after partition. My grandfather was from Afghanistan. My grandmother was from, my maternal grandmother, she was from Pakistan, or on either side of Peshawar. And they migrated to India in 47. So I have a mixed breeding, so to say. And therefore, I derive from both the cultures and I derive my lessons and my attitudes from both. And my dad was the first person to come out of the village. And so, therefore, I had a very humble beginning in terms of the economic background. We came from a very lower middle economic background. But one of the things my parents did, my father, essentially, because my mother was also studying. My mother was in BA Part 1 when she had me. And thereafter, she did her BA, B.Ed, MA, M.Ed, PhD, B.Lit. So my mother and I, in a way, studied together. So I started studying and she was also studying. But my father made sure that he sent me to the best possible school that he could. So my childhood was, there are 4 or 5 things which exemplify what my childhood was all about. One was great schools and therefore great teachers. Number two was an opportunity to just read, because we had a small house, an entire house was full of books because my mother was studying and later on she was doing a PhD. And unlike today, when you have everything on the electronic data, they actually had to fetch those books or get photocopies of those books. So my father and mother, they would travel, leaving me with my nani, nana. They would travel to these libraries across the country, take the photocopies of books or the relevant chapters of the books, and then come back. So all I saw around me was Sanskrit books. And therefore, Sanskrit was the first language that I picked up. The second language that I picked up was English because my parents could speak English. They couldn't speak English, and they thought that they wanted their child to be able to not just speak English, but to think in English. And therefore, they kept a British tutor at that point of time teach me spoken English. So that was my second language. And then later, I learned Hindi because it was a common language. And then, of course, I picked up Bhojpuri and Punjabi because my father's side spoke Bhojpuri and my mother's side spoke Punjabi. So languages and different, very different cultures. When I went to my father's village or when I went to my nani's place, they were very different cultures. So an amalgamation of cultures. That's again one of the earliest childhood memories. And I think all of this has helped me grow. Now, you also asked as a student. So as a student, I studied in some amazing schools. I first studied in Mariampur School, which was attached to the hospital where I was born in. So I was born in Mariampur Hospital, and Mariampur Hospital and Mariampur School, they both have a common boundary wall. And therefore, I just dropped in from the hospital to the school, of course, after a couple of years. And Mariampur School gave me that very solid grounding. It was a convent. It had a typical way of teaching you how to do things, to work on your social manners, to work on the way you should dress up, the way you should present yourself. Lots of debates, lots of declamations, lots of extracurricular activities. So it gave me a very solid foundation. And then I moved on to a school called Jaipuria because for some reason, Mariampur decided to turn itself into an all-girls school. So all the boys were simply asked to leave one fine day. And therefore, I went to this school called Jaipuria, which was considered to be the best school in India, in Kanpur at that point of time. And once again, it was a school which gave me a lot of freedom in terms of opportunities beyond academics. So while at Jaipuria, I got into an activity which was fruit preservation. So I could actually make jams. I could actually make jellies. I got into dramatics because I was a part of the dramatics society. And then I learned, once again, I engaged with a lot of extracurricular activities, debates, declamations, quizzes, etc. And again, these gave me a very solid foundation in a whole lot of other things, which today's NEP 2020 talks about. NEP 2020 now talks about those extracurriculars. It talks about multilinguistic approaches, etc., etc. But I was fortunate enough that I got it in my childhood, in my student days itself. And then for 11th and 12th, I moved to Kendriya Vidyalaya, the central school, which once again exposed me to a completely different set of work ethic, a completely different set of faculty, one of whom was my mentor and had a very big impact on my life. And I'll talk about it at some other point of time. And then I went for my engineering to KREC Surathkal, which is now called NIT Surathkal. And brilliant memories once again, because again, there in an NIT, in a KREC, you get to meet people from all parts of the country. And in our time, we also had a lot of students from Palestine who, because of the strife, had to come to India, and they were all distributed across the RECs of India. And therefore, once again, exposure to a very different set of people, exposure to people from diverse backgrounds. And I think all of this in my student days and my childhood days has helped me to grow up into someone who's sensitive and who has an appreciation for other people's cultures, other people's beliefs, and other people's thought processes and perspectives. And I think that is something that has shaped me to be what I am today.
It's really fascinating, and I certainly agree with you, Dr. Rai. Each one of us should not keep that child in us away and be curious. And when you talk about being curious, and the child in the when we are children, we talk to our mom or dad, why is sky blue? Why does this pen write? So we keep on questioning. And once we move to the adult age, and in case those people who are not having that curiosity in mind, then they are not learning. And world is so dynamic that every time we need to learn. And your journey of student as a child has been really fantastic, moving from one place. And you certainly, Malyanpuri School is today a brand of the Rai, and the hospital and the school. And then you shared that because of different cultures of people from different Palestinians were there, you are very sensitive and you appreciate, you learn that attitude of gratitude and appreciating others. Very excited. That was profound, Dr. I. My second question to you, Dr. I see that the last 24 years, starting from Tata's and XLRI, IM Lucknow, your journey has been a power of unknown, unheard, unbelievable name to reckon with today. Because as a child, as a student, nobody knew that one day this young, dynamic, bright Himanshu Rai is going to be leading an IIM institution in the country and a name to reckon with. And then what made you different? That's what my question. What made you different as compared to others in terms of impacting, changing the gears, being different? And there may have been certain issues, challenges, bottlenecks, because when you are on a roadmap to success or a journey of excellence, there are bound to be issues, and we break them, and we move forward and look ahead. Can you give us your this journey of your world of excellence with what kind of challenges, so that the audience can understand that challenges are part of life. We just need to work on and move forward. Dr. Rai.
Sure. I mean, that's a very loaded question, Mr. Bakshi. And, it's almost a question which would require me to talk about my entire life and my life lessons, but I'll try to keep it short and to the point. First of all, I'm still on the journey to excellence. So the journey to excellence to me is a perpetual journey. It's an everlasting journey, and it's a never-ending journey. So I don't think there is a final destination to this particular journey. It will lead me somewhere, I'm sure, but this journey is a continuous one. That is one. The second part is that how am I different? I really don't know if I'm different from other people. The only thing is, one, I can surely say that I'm far more fortunate than other people. I strongly believe that I have gotten much more than I deserved. That is one. Though people keep telling me, no, you have worked very hard for it, of course, but all of us work hard. I believe that I've been very fortunate. That is one. Two, I believe that I have met people who, in some or the other way, have impacted my life. And I've been fortunate enough to find such people all along my life. The one thing that I can say about me and what makes me perhaps me is that I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of anyone. I do what I want to do, and I do it on my own terms. And I've been extremely fortunate that I have been able to do it so far. And I hope that I would be able to do it continuously. That is one thing, if at all I have to say as to how am I different. The second thing is that I have learned, and I continuously try to learn from everyone and everything. And why did I do that? Now, that part will answer some of the other questions that you asked me about the challenges that I've faced, the roadblocks that I've faced. The biggest challenge that I have faced is that of my conditioning. Because ever since I was born, I know I was born on a Christmas morning at 10:50 a.m. And at 10:51 a.m., my father looked at me, pointed at me, and he said, "Isko engineer banana hai. I'll make him an engineer." 6 years later, my brother was born, and at 1:10 a.m., at 1:11 a.m., my dad looked at him and said, "Isko doctor banana. I want him to be a doctor." And lo and behold, I'm an engineer, he's a doctor. Many years later, I decided to shift into the academic world. That's another story. But the whole point is I was conditioned. I was conditioned to become very competitive because my parents always compared me to the rest of the people. I've never come second. And it is simply because that was expected of me, that I'll always come first. This is a very tricky thing. So in some ways, it has had a positive impact. In some ways, it had a negative impact on me when I was a child, because it made me very, very competitive as a child. I always wanted to make sure that nobody should be better than me. I have to be better than everyone. And that pushed me to do a lot of things. You mentioned the word success, and you said that you look at how can people talk about success, and Dr. Preetham Singh added sustainable success. Success itself means different things to the same person at different times of life. To me as a child, success meant winning against others. Now that definition of success for me has completely changed. The moment I received my own emancipation, if I were to say so, when I had my Bodhi moment without sitting under a Bodhi tree, when I got enlightened, I realized that success was not about winning against others. Success was about achieving your true potential. And when you try to achieve your true potential, in that case, what others are doing really does not matter. You're not comparing yourself with others. What you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out who you really are. What is your true identity? What is your swadharma? And then you try to become better and better at it every day. And there's always scope to become a little more better. And therefore, one of the things I keep telling people is, there was this philosopher who said, you can't step into the same river twice. And the reason being, this is a philosophical statement, because a river is always moving. So if you have stepped into a river, the next time you put your feet into it, that water has already gone. So you're stepping into a different water. Likewise, I say, you should not be the same person in the next minute. You should be a better human being the very next minute. You shouldn't be the same person twice on the time scale. You must be a better human being. So to me, the biggest challenge was conditioning, that I was conditioned to be competitive. And for a very long part of my time in my life, I was very, very competitive. A thing in the Himalayas changed all of that. I'll perhaps speak about it later. The second was the set of expectations. Because as I said, I came from a very, very humble background. There were a lot of expectations that my parents had for me. There were a lot of expectations that my relatives had around they had of me, because they said, here is a person who to them was at that point of this, that you start living somebody else's expectations rather than living your own dreams. And therefore, the second thing that comes out of it, and the lesson that I learned, and I would like to share this coming from my experience, is don't live somebody else's expectations. Be a great version of your own self, not of somebody else. And doesn't matter. You may be a fan of somebody, you might consider someone as a role model, you might consider someone as an ideal, but please remember, all you can do is perhaps take some lessons from their life. You can't, and you shouldn't even try to become them. You are you. You have to keep that individuality within you and make yourself a better version of whatever it is that you can become. And therefore, these are the challenges. Fortunately, I've never faced an external challenge. Of course, I've gone through the usual stuff that most of us go through in terms of, turning into a rebel at some point of time in your teenagers, and then your usual heartbreaks when you are older and when you get into relationships, so on and so forth. But nothing extraordinary. All the challenges were those which actually came to me because of conditioning and the expectation of people around me, as well as sometimes when you want to do something new, there are at least 10 people who will tell you why it should not be done, and particularly why you should not be the one who should be doing it. And that brings in a sense of complacency at one point. And at some point, it also brings in an element of self-doubt that should I actually do this? So when at the age of 30, I decided to get back to a school, many of my friends told me, are you mad? Why would you want to leave this job? I mean, this is a great job. Tata Steel is a great company, and Tata Steel is a great company. It's a brilliant company, and Jamshedpur is a brilliant place to live in. The kind of a lifestyle that one can have in Jamshedpur, the quality of life is tremendous. And yet, I had to change. And as I said, that's another story as to why I wanted to change. But at that point of time, everybody around me thought that I was mad. They thought, how could I leave such a cushy life? And why would I want to go back to college? And they said, are you mad? Do you think that you'll be able to crack CAT, number one? And even if you crack CAT, and I said, CAT should not be a big problem because my English is great, my math is great. I love mathematics. The only thing that I have to kind of practice a little is my logical reasoning and data interpretation, and I should do it. So I took a two-week leave from Tata Steel. For 2 weeks, I prepared, I practiced, I wrote it, and again, I was fortunate. I got through IIM Ahmedabad, where I went and studied. But as I said, my bottlenecks came from things around me rather than, so I did not have a a bad childhood, or I did not have people who were trying to wreck my career, so on and so forth. I simply had people who would put those doubts inside you, or my own circumstances, in the sense the way I grew up, looking at how much my parents had done for me, and therefore that reciprocity that I should listen to them perhaps. So all of those, and these are complex things. They're very difficult to kind of explain, and each one of us will have to fight their own battles. Because another thing I'll tell you is that what is a roadblock to me may not be a roadblock to somebody else. What hurts me may not hurt somebody else. So, for example, some people get hurt by physical pain. So, if I slap somebody, the other person might get hurt. But there are people who might get hurt because of the kind of words that are spoken, because of the kind of attitude that people display towards them. And therefore, I always keep telling people, don't try to compare your scars with other people's scars. All of us have scars. All of us have our own scars. No point in trying to compare and say, hey, I had a bad life. All of us had a similar life. The people who have been economically very sound have had a completely different set of challenges, etc., etc. So as I said, my bottlenecks, my problems have been ones which were because of my conditioning and the expectations, and they were my problems. And the moment I managed to figure out and overcome these challenges, I thought I got onto the right path.
Yes, brilliant, Dr. Rai. In fact, I like this word. You were conditioned to be competitive. And I think you rightly said that while there are expectations from people, but at the same time, you need to have your own dream, and your own dream is more important than anything else. And I like this, we all have scars, and there's no doubt we all have scars. How to turn scars into stars, is that what we do? And another thing which you importantly said, that it is a continuous journey of excellence. It's a continuous journey. There's no end to excellence. I have a quick question. Who were your mentors during this journey? Just quick. Who are your mentors?
There are, Mr. Bakshi, there have been too many people who have touched my life. And I think, what I am today is not because, whatever little I am today is not because of my own efforts, but too many people have, given me their strength. They have given me their shoulders to stand upon. They've given me their thought processes to build upon. But there are some people who have played a very important role in terms of mentors, or in terms of being influencers, not so much as mentors, but they have influenced my life, or they have brought about some change in my life, a change at a profound level. Every person that I meet, I learn from this person. But some people have brought in very profound changes in me. One of them was my school teacher in class 11th and 12th, Mr. A.K. Katiyar, Mr. Arvind Katiyar. He taught me physics. And he's the person because of whom I love physics. Physics was my favorite subject. And why? They show it in films, but I've actually gone through those kind of experiences. So I was preparing for NTSC, the National Talent Search exam. And physics was one of the subjects that I'd taken up in that particular exams. And otherwise, also, I was interested in physics. So at times, I would solve these problems. There was this book called Resnick and Halliday. And there was another book called Irodov, i.e. Irodov. And these had the most difficult physics questions. And I used to love solving them. And when I couldn't solve them, I would go to Mr. Katiyar's house, who used to live pretty close to the place that we lived in. My parents, my brother and I, we lived in. And then we would try to solve. And there would be times when I would be sitting at his place, we couldn't solve a particular problem. I would be going back home, and then he would shout from the balcony, Himanshu, stop, stop. And then he would come running down with with the notebook and a pen, and then standing under the pole, the electric pole. In that light, he would solve that problem, and then he would discuss it standing right there on the road under an electric lamp. And therefore, the one lesson that I learned from him is that you don't need a great infrastructure to build a great institution. All you need is a passionate teacher. You have a passionate teacher, you can change lives. If you have infrastructure as well, great. I mean, that's an add-on. That's a plus. But you don't need it. That's not the main thing. What you need is a passionate teacher who loves to teach. And from Mr. Katiyar, I got that passion. In my engineering college, I had a professor called Professor D.B. Fakhruddin. I don't think he would even remember me. Uh, there were too many of us, number one. And the one thing that I learned from Professor D.B. Fakhruddin, he was a terror. People used to be scared of him. And he had a great sense of humor. He had a biting sense of humor. So I was at the receiving end of his humor once because he asked a question I couldn't answer. And he made the statement, Himanshu, when you were nodding your head first during the class, I thought you were wise. But now I understand you are otherwise. And, nobody has ever kind of had that kind of a crack at me. And yet I couldn't help but laugh because that was so amusing to me. And I realized that as a teacher, you need to have a sense of humor as well, without, of course, humiliating or insulting somebody. But what I remember about him is, somebody asked him that you don't keep roja during, the fasting during Ramzan, and you don't even follow a lot of those rituals which your religion asks you to do. And Professor Fakhruddin said a very profound thing. He said, I follow what the Prophet taught. And the Prophet has taught that work is worship. And therefore, till the day I retire, I will focus only on my work. Once I retire from work, then I will follow all the rituals which are in there. And this is something which has stayed with me, that when you are in an educational institution, it's a temple by itself. It's a mosque by itself. It's a church by itself. You don't need any other temples. You don't need any other mosques. You don't need any other churches. विद्या का जब आलय मिल गया तो उसी आलय में रहना चाहिए. उसके बाद देवालय वगैरह बाहर में बनते रहे, ना बने, उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. So that work ethic, that work comes before any of your personal set of belief system, etc. And don't bring that into your classroom, was something that I learned from him. Then, of course, the person who, so I always keep telling about this person. I keep saying that, everyone, earlier it was said of the Brahmins, of course, by a particular tradition, that Brahmins are twice born. Dwij bola jata tha. And they said Brahmins are twice born. And what I strongly believe in is that everyone has the capability to be twice born. The first time you are born is when you are actually given birth by your mother. And the second time you are born is when you understand why. Wow. Why were you born in the first place? And this, my second mother, who actually gave me the reason as to why I was born. And she's my mountaineering guru, Bachendri Pal, from whom I learned mountaineering. And she was the first Indian woman to climb Everest. But all of that is her history. She was the one who actually took me to the Himalayas for the first time. It was a part of our GT training in Tata Steel. And she was the one who introduced me to the Himalayas. And I've learned many lessons from her. Lessons of leadership, lessons of humility, lessons of actually enjoying the journey rather than being obsessed about the destination. That was the most important lesson that I learned from her. And I continue to learn from her because the way, the strength that she has in her is mind-boggling. And people think of her Everest summit as her biggest achievement. Not to me. She led an all-women's expedition, which was trans-Himalayan, which lasted for 10 months. It was a 10-month expedition. To be trekking for 10 months is unbelievable. The kind of mental toughness that you require, the kind of physical fitness that you require, that is mind-boggling. And to me, that is her biggest achievement. And the second biggest achievement, according to me, is that she has motivated 10 other men and women to actually climb Everest. Therefore, that is the crux of leadership. When not only do you realize your true potential, you help others to realize their true potential. She is, again, the third. The fourth is my ex-boss at Tata Steel, who was also my local guardian. So all of us GTs, the graduate trainees of Tata Steel, we were given a local guardian who was a mentor, and Mr. Sanjay Singh, who now lives in Delhi. He has had a profound impact on me because everything that I have learned about corporate communication, I have learned through him. He has abnormal levels of patience, not extraordinary, but abnormal levels of patience. The way he can deal with people, and that is something I have tried to, grasp from him, tried to imbibe from him, as well as support. So when I decided to shift from Tata Steel, when I decided to resign from Tata Steel and go to IIM Ahmedabad to study, he was the one person who stood by me and said, perfect decision. And if you need my help, everything, I mean, of any kind, he was always there to help me. He was always there to support me. And therefore, even thereafter, whenever I have made a transition in my career or whenever I've taken an important decision, I've always made it a point to sound it off him. I always call him up and I say, can we have a discussion? And he's always there. And he's that kind of person who will never tell you that you should do this. He will simply have a discussion and he will encourage me to do what my heart is telling me to do. So he's the fourth person. And the final person, as I said, there are too many, but another person who kind of, has a big influence on my life is my yoga and Ayurveda guru, with whom I'm writing my second book as well, Swami Videhi Yogi. And importantly, why? Because he's that one person who every time he comes to visit me, his first question is not about my work. His first question is always about my health. How are you keeping? Are you doing your yoga regularly? Are you still teaching yoga? Are you still reading your Sanskrit? Are you making sure that you're walking? Are you making sure that your food habits are right? And the second thing he would do is enter into the kitchen and then talk to my staff about what kind of food is he making, and then ensure that the food is right, which means less salt, less spice, some aushadhis in everything. So there's ajwain in everything that I eat. So things are made in a certain way. So he's that one person who really doesn't care about other aspects of my work, really doesn't care about whether I'm successful, not successful, whether I'm doing this or doing that. What he says is, Himanshu, you have a brilliant mind, and remember, a healthy mind can reside only in a healthy body. And therefore, that is my only concern, whether you have a healthy body, whether you continue to have a healthy body or not. And therefore, thanks to him and his frequent interventions, I make sure that I keep myself super fit. So as I said, many, many other people, and I've learned from so many, but these are the people who have really had it.
Dr. Himanshu, first of all, let me give a big round of applause to all your mentors, because of these mentors, we have today such a great person who is in the process of nation building, because he's building Yangistan of the world. I call the future generations Yangistan, and the faces of Yangistan are going to be around the world. They're already around the world, and more faces are going to be around the world. Sari dunya muthi mein, I keep on talking about Indianization. Yes, Indian talent, Indian manpower is going to be profound for the entire global world. That is the global talent. And when I was looking at your mentors, and there have been many mentors, and the last one, which I think we all need to learn as leaders and keep control, is that the last mentor is asking about the health, about the yoga, about are you teaching yoga? And that's one of an important aspect, because as leaders, we need to spread this. And how many people are you teaching this yoga? That's the beauty of it. And one more important thing which you talked about, Dr. Ryan, I also believe in it. Though I give a different touch on this, I call it romancing with my destiny. And work as worship. I am as temple, as a gurdwara, as a mosque, as a church. And that speaks volumes about your leadership. Because the moment the leaders think their place of work and the business is their worship, is their temple, I think those traits are going to be respected and saluted by everybody. I have given this name, like what I do now. My kids keep on talking to me. I have two grown-up children. They're both in Canada, in Toronto, and they keep on asking, why are you doing so much? I said, I have romancing with my destiny. And worship is absolutely important. Dr. Rai, you are making me to learn a lot of things today. And I have been your follower. Ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, I have been the follower of Dr. Rai, and today I got an opportunity to have him on the digital mode. I don't know when we can meet face to face, but I'm getting more charged by this young, dynamic, handsome, I am director of our proud country, our nation, our India. I have two Indian flag and Thai flag, Karamabhumi and Janamabhumi. I'm a proud Indian, global Indian. Dr. Rai, while I have had discussions with a lot of people known to you, you were subordinates previously, now you were seniors who have been part of your journey of excellence. And I was asking them, yeah, what kind of person Dr. Rai is? Because I do a lot of research and development. You must have seen, I really work on my, when I have to do things. So I was told that your style of leadership is simply elegant, humane, but at the same time, you're very agile for your education excellence, competitiveness. And I have known that in Indore, after you took over, you connected even IIT Indore and IIM Indore and many others together, which nobody else had done it earlier. So I am, and at the same time, I was told that you have a very tough taskmaster when it comes to business. You don't you don't mince words, you're direct, but you're humane, you're compassionate. And why I'm raising this question right now is because we have seen before COVID different set of leadership, but the moment COVID caught us, all of us around the world, and we could see leaders during COVID, you know, getting into shivering, struggling. Don't take me wrong, but I still respect those women prime ministers around the world. I run the program for Women Power, a global movement, and I see women leaders very well managing the things. Today is a Karwa Chauth. My respects to all women. I tweeted this morning, men remain men and women are the women power of the world. During COVID and after COVID, when everybody is still struggling, we are trying to come out. So how do you share those thoughts? How these business leaders need to take their businesses forward while being tough, agile, at the same time being humane and compassionate?
So, I would like to perhaps expand a little on both these things. So, when you talk about the compassionate, a whole lot of people do not understand compassion, and therefore, I have on many occasions I had to actually explain what does compassion mean and how compassion is different from sentimentality, because a lot of people think that being sentimental is being compassionate. No, not at all. Simply because you cry while watching a movie does not make you a good human being. It simply means you're a human. You become a good human being when you are compassionate. And being compassionate means that not only do you cry, but you also make sure that you try to do something about the reason why the other person is suffering, because of which you are crying, because of which you became sentimental. So only being sentimental is not good enough. So a lot of people believe that sympathizing is good enough. No, it's not. Being compassionate means doing something proactive. And therefore, this after and COVID has started this lesson, because unless you're compassionate, unless this world works together, unless you collaborate with each other, we cannot survive as a universe. We cannot survive as a planet. We cannot survive as a world. So we are all interconnected. And therefore, anything that happens to one part of the world is going to impact another part of the world. I mean, if people believe that they can live in an island and then they can live happily, no, it's not going to happen. It's almost like saying that in a body, if something happens in one hand of mine, the rest of the body is not going to suffer. No, your entire body will suffer eventually if you let that wound fester. And therefore, when I say being compassionate, it means as a business leader or even as a leader of an educational institution, make sure that you're compassionate towards all the stakeholders. Number one. Second, make sure that your attention is towards those who are more disadvantaged. So I'll just give you a couple of very quick examples. When we turned from a physical classroom mode to an online mode, the first thing that we did was we built our systems. We quickly changed our system. We got the best, things to deliver online classes, etc. The state of the art equipment, the state of the art tools, so on and so forth. But then subsequently, when the students started talking and when the students started attending the classes, what I realized was that the important thing was not just in the institution getting all of that, I had to also figure out, do the students have that kind of a bandwidth? Do they have that kind of an equipment? And if they don't, what can we do about it? So then we had to think of many different things. For example, recording the sessions, making them available to the students for some time. Now I've started sending even the material, the printout of the material. Or somebody would say, hey, why are you sending printouts of the material? Why are you wasting paper when everyone is going digital? The reason is the exposure time to the screen has become so much that I'm afraid that my students will lose their eyesight. It will have a long-term impact. It is already impacting their sleep. It is already impacting their health. And therefore, when they said that they find it easier to read from a paper, I said, let's do it. And likewise, we have started bringing the students, of course, if they wish to the campus, but only if they wish to. The classes are still online, but if they have a big problem of network, if they have a problem, back in their homes, for example, people assume that work from home is a great thing. No, not at all. You have to understand, I may have a big official residence over here, but think of families living in Mumbai in a 2-bedroom house, and you have 4 people. You have husband and wife both working. You have 2 children studying. And if you think work from home and study from home is going to be easy for this family, no, you have 2 rooms. First of all, you need 4 equipment at the same time. And if all 4 of you are talking, you will end up disturbing each other. And therefore, people actually take turns. People have to perhaps share equipment at points of time. And therefore, you have to be sensitive about that and compassionate enough to do things. That is the second thing. And the third thing, in the COVID time, what you must realize as a business leader or as an institutional leader, that it is always survival of not the fittest, but somebody who can adapt very, very quickly, somebody who's very, very quick. It's not the fittest who will survive, it's the quickest who will survive. So you have to very quickly adapt yourself to the circumstances. You have to very quickly think of a different way of doing things. And you have to make decisions very, very quickly. And that, I believe, is one of the tenets. As I said, that one of the things that I can say about myself is that I'm not afraid of things. I'm not afraid to make decisions. And as a business leader, as a leader, let's not, in fact, bring business into it. As a leader, you will need, and I mean an administrative leader. Everyone has the potential to be a leader. And all of us are leaders in our own rights. But let's say if you're in an administrative position, as that leader, as a person in the position of authority, you must make quick decisions. And remember, you're not here to win a popularity contest. For example, I can be perhaps the most popular director if I say no exams for anybody. But will I be an ethical director? Will I be doing the right thing? The answer is no. Why? Because the moment I say everybody is promoted, it would make all the batches of 2020 as the COVID batch. That here is a COVID batch at IIM Indore, which did not go through any evaluation process, and therefore their capabilities will be suspect. And therefore, as a leader, remember, it is in the tough times that you are really tested. Your real character is tested. And people who succumb to popularity will perhaps take popular decisions without thinking of the long-term impact that they're having on that particular person. So remember that as a leader, sometimes you may have to make tough decisions. Sometimes you may have to make unpopular decisions. And sometimes you may be wrong. You may have taken a decision thinking about the good of the other people, but it may turn out to be wrong. Have the courage to acknowledge and accept that I was wrong. If you say sorry, people actually respect you more. Nobody is going to put you down if you have apologized and if you have genuinely apologized. The problem is that we don't even know how to say sorry. So if at all I do a mistake, let's say if I come late to a class, people would say, if they're entering late into the class, I'm sorry I'm late, but it was raining out there, or I timed myself poorly, or it took me a lot of time to eat. The moment you use that word but, then the sorry that you have said before it has become meaningless. So when you apologize as a leader, just apologize. Don't give any excuses. Say, I did wrong. I was wrong. I made a wrong decision. However, I will not make it again, and I'll take immediate steps to rectify it. So that is another aspect that you must learn from a crisis as a leader. And finally, in the times of a crisis, a leader has to lead from the front. You can't be sitting in the back room and doing the maneuvering, saying that, okay, I'm encouraging people to go up. A lot of people say, general thodi jata hai. सीमा पे युद्ध करने के लिए सैनिक जाता है. But please remember, not in the times of crisis. In the time of crisis, you have to go to the front. So, for example, at IIM Indore, when I put in the lockdown, we had only 10% of the support staff inside. But here is a 193-acre campus, and 150 families were still living in here. But they continue to live because they are my faculty and my staff, officers, etc. And therefore, we needed people to help out. Now, we divided work into 5 different categories. So we had gardening, we had security, we had dining halls, we had mopping and sweeping of the campus, and we had the dog shelter. We also have a dog shelter at IIM Indore where we take care of the stray dogs. And therefore, we asked for the community to volunteer. Now, we got lots of volunteers for 4 activities. We got very less number of volunteers the first time for mopping and sweeping. Ergo, what do you do as a leader? So on the first Sunday, when I had invited everybody, I took up the jharu, I took up the pocha and started doing it. And then subsequently, within a couple of hours, the news spread around and more people joined in. And the next time, when again I asked them to come, there were far more people who came for sweeping and cleaning. The whole point is, and this is not to say that I did a great thing. This is my institution. And so just like I keep my house clean, people ask me, why do you keep talking about nation building? Because I have made several statements saying that as IIMs, and including our own as well, we haven't done enough for the community. We haven't done enough for the nation, for the simple reason that this is my nation. I have to do something for my nation. And this is something that I have got from my early days at Tata Steel. J.N. Tata, Jamsetji Tata, always said, what is good for India is good for the Tatas. G.R.D. Tata followed exactly the same suit. So those were my work principles that got built. Those were the core values that got imbibed inside me. And therefore, I've always been of this belief, what is good for the world is good for India. What is good for my country is good for my institution. And what is good for my institution is good for me. And this is something that all of us have as leaders need to remember. What we need to look at is not our personal agenda. What we need to look at is the institutional agenda. If IIM Indore does well, so will I. If India does well, so will IIM Indore. If this world thrives, if this universe thrives, if this universe becomes a happier place, so will this country. And therefore, you always have to look at and this is not an obligation, this is a responsibility. You always have to look at the responsibility that you owe to the institution that you come from. You know, in between, it had almost become some kind of an attitude statement to tell you as to what your institution did not teach you. And to me, this was bizarre that instead of being grateful to the institution, you're talking about what the institution did not teach you. Or instead of being grateful to the culture or the people that have made you, of course, there are deficiencies in every place. ग्रहण तो चांद में भी लगता है और चांद में भी धब्बे हैं. But if you look at that, then you will miss out on the complete beauty of this universe. This universe is not created perfect. There is an imperfection, and that imperfection is what makes you more beautiful. You know, I keep telling people that you cannot create a melody unless you introduce silences between the notes. If you only have notes, what you will get is a cacophony. You will get a noise. You introduce silences. You introduce these little imperfections within notes, and then you can create a melody. And likewise, beauty will come in with these little imperfections because that is what makes us human beings. Unless I have some moments of sadness, I will never be able to appreciate what happiness is. And that is something we need to remember, that we are imperfect. We will make mistakes. The courage and the leadership is to own up to those mistakes, lead from the front. And if you fall, don't be scared. Get up, kapde saaf karo, and then start walking again. You will eventually reach there, provided you have the passion.
Oh my God, what a leadership lesson, Dr. Rai. That is, fascinating. And you started from adapting and survival of fittest. No, survival of quickest. And talking about taking decisions, courage, courage of taking decisions, that to DC during COVID. And even if decisions are wrong and you fall, to fall is not a failure. It is only when you do not get up again. The moment you get up again, there's no failure at all. And acknowledging and with respectability saying, hey, I did a mistake, sincere apologies, with not but from your conviction of respecting and telling the world, as a leader, I have failed. And I remember APJ Kalam when he failed and he said, ladies and gentlemen, at the press conference, we have failed today. We could not launch it. But you will see that in next 1 year, we are going to be launched because I believe in my team. And it happened that after 1 year, when the launch was done, it was successful. His boss was, again, a great leader, and he expected him to go for the press conference. He said,
Yeah.
no.
Satish Dhawan.
Satish Pradhan, you go for the
Yeah, right.
you go for the press conference. And when he was astonished, why should I go? He said, it is you and your team. And that is how the beauty of a leadership is. I don't know.
Mr. Bakshi, just to kind of point out, we probably didn't keep a tab on time, but
Yeah. I'm
it's
actually,
already an hour.
yeah.
So I think we will need to wrap up in the next 5 minutes.
No, I need to have some questions from the public also. Tell me quickly now, you are a global talent. You are building global talent for nation, rather Atmanirbhar, global talent vocally and locally. And what motivates you? Quick response.
I think my sense of purpose motivates me. So what had happened at that point of time when I was working with Tata Steel was that because of a particular incident in the Himalayas, I managed to figure out the purpose of my life. And the moment you figure out the purpose of your life, it gives you the idea of your swadharma. And the moment you figure out your swadharma, it gives you that push to actually continue on that journey. And when I talk about the purpose of my life, I'm not talking about the milestones in my life, but I'm talking about what is it that is actually the philosophy of my life? What is the kind of a world that I wish to live in? And therefore, if I wish to live in that kind of a world, how can I create that kind of a world? And once that purpose is defined, then you continue to live for that purpose. And you continue to live for that purpose till you really die, physically die. And that's what drives me. So that is one. And the second, as I said, as a result of my purpose, there are two things which I have picked up, which is one is teaching and the other is mountaineering. And why are these two important to me? Not just because of the activities. Teaching is important to me because I always believe that to be a good teacher, you have to be a perpetual learner. And therefore, because I teach, I also learn. You know, what they say is that if you want to learn something really well, start teaching it. And I always keep telling to my students and also to my fellow teachers or students who want to become teachers, is that you have understood a concept if you can explain it to a 5-year-old. If you cannot explain it to a 5-year-old, then you have not understood the concept. You've possibly just mugged up something, but you have not really understood it. But the day you develop the capability of explaining it to a 5-year-old means that you've really understood a concept. And to achieve that kind of a clarity, you need to be a perpetual learner. And there's a Socratic axiom, and that is what I've lived by. And that is, again, as I said, that is something that drives me. Socrates said, education and learning is the progressive realization of your own ignorance. And this is a brilliant statement. The more you learn, the more you realize how ignorant you are. Yeah. And therefore, when I read about subjects other than my own, so I love reading. I have my entire house is like a library now, just like my parents' house was. I don't know how many books I have, probably 10,000 or something, and I must have read them multiple times. And I love reading them. And every time I read them, I get something new. Even if I read that book again, over and over again, every time I read it, I get something new. And every time I read it, I realize that, oh my God, there is so much more to learn. There is so much more to know. And that passion that, I need to learn more. I need to know more. I need to become a better human being in any which way. Learn a new new thing, learn a new language, listen to a new song, watch a new movie, read a book, read another book, talk to a person who's different from you. All of these are steps that make you a better person, that make you a more sensitive person, that make you more human, a better human being. And this is what keeps me driving, keeps me going. And mountains, because they give me an opportunity to talk to myself. The reason why I go to the Himalayas is because Himalayas, two reasons, in fact, not one. First, they make me humble. You know, when you go to a small hill, you think you are at the top. In the Himalayas, it doesn't matter where you are. Whichever top, whichever peak you reach, you realize that, oh my God, there are so many peaks around me that I'm yet to climb. And the mountains are so big that they really make you feel humble, that, hey, you need to show some humility. And that has to be the true purpose of education as well. And the second thing is they give me a place and space to talk to myself, to do some introspection, to do some reflection. And these are the pauses that we all need to have in our life to figure out why is it that we are doing whatever it is that we are doing.
Very great. I have a quick question now before I'm running a movement called Women Power, hashtag Women Power, a global movement around the world. I am mad about it. By 2024, 1 million women around the world, irrespective of caste, creed, color, nationality, and religion. Kiran Bedi is the first Women Power. So how do we get a support from you on women empowerment, gender equality? Would you like to support this movement?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, I very strongly believe that for far too long, for millennia, women have been put in a position of disadvantage. And as a society, even in the modern times, we haven't done enough. We have done some things that have been very superficial. And even if they have been there with the right intent, they are far too less. So we haven't done enough. Just like I say, we haven't done enough for the community around us. I believe we haven't done enough for the women around us and the other disadvantaged sections as well, who have been in a position of disadvantage and have been kept there on purpose for a very, very long time. So I would be more than happy to participate. And you'll be happy to know that I am doing something. So even when I was working in UP, a friend of mine, Navneet Sikera, who's an IPS, a cop there, he had started something called a Women Power Line. And that was very interesting. So women who were being stalked or women who were being troubled on phone, and there was a system which we developed. I will not get into the nitty-gritty of the system. You can read about it. The important point over there was that, when we were thinking about what do we call it, normally people call it helpline. And we said, no, we don't want it to be a helpline because women don't need help. They need empowerment. We just need to let the women be. We need to give them the space. We need to give them the opportunity to express themselves. They don't need our help. They will take care of themselves. And therefore, we decided to call it Women Power Line. And of course, it was his baby and he did everything. But the important point over here is that even the nomenclature matters. A lot of people think, what's in a nomenclature? The nomenclature indicates what is your intention behind everything. So likewise, at IIM Indore, what we have done is, as a part of our institutional social responsibility, we are working with, even within women who come from disadvantaged economic background. So what we are doing is we have launched a financial literacy program for such women. So we have someone in Indore. She works a lot on financial literacy, on financial empowerment, Shanu Mehta. So she in Madhya Pradesh, and then I have another friend, Gayatri Rajesh, she in Rajasthan. What we are doing is we are doing these financial literacy workshops where we tell these women how to do small things, how to make a home budget, how to reduce the difference between their income and their expenditure, how to collate all the loans that they have from the sahukars, etc., of the village and convert it into one bank loan. And for those women who have certain entrepreneurial motivations, we handhold them till they actually get into some kind of an entrepreneurial venture. So I will be more than delighted, Mr. Bakshi, to join hands with whatever.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I have a quick question from Ravinder Kachru. With your so much of vast experience in industry and institutions, don't you envision to start your own education institution, be an entrepreneur, which can churn quality people and become much more nation builder as India needs such great institutions? Quick response, sir.
See,
I,
it's an idea which sounds very attractive and looks like a logical next step to many people, but not to me. If I start another institution, I'll be able to influence perhaps another bunch of 1,000 to 2,000 odd people in there. My idea is not to launch another institution. My idea is to launch a thought process, is to launch a thought movement which can perhaps influence the world. So if I had the talent to, I would perhaps write a book that would change the way people think, or I would have a bunch of speeches which would change the way people think. Or if I am in a position where I can bring a difference in terms of creating certain systems, I would create systems which make this world, a happier place to live in, a more equitable place to live
okay, quick one. I have a question, Mr. Commissioner, RD Commissioner. I can unmute you, quick one. We are racing with the time. Mr. Commissioner, President of Aditya Birla Company. And in the meanwhile, Vivek Harkoli, another business director globally. I am unmuting you. Can you unmute yourself? Quick one. Let me know, quick one. And in the meanwhile, I have on Facebook Professor BC Sharma saying, absolutely clear, we are in the business, we are not in the business of popularity. Rashmi is saying, wow, curious, inquisitive, and amazed talk. And Melania from Spain is saying, this is fascinating. And we have Johnson from Durban saying, fantastic and fascinating. Sushil Dhanuka saying from Bangkok, wonderful. And Dilip Patel saying, this is one of the best talks, and so on and so on. Can you unmute yourself because we need to race with the time? They are not able to unmute.
in. I think Vivek has unmuted himself.
Vivek?
Good evening, Dr. Rai. Good evening, Bakshi. How are you doing?
All good, Vivek.
Just a quick one. You said people have expectations and therefore we need to live up to those expectations. My question is, how did you manage to break those shackles around you of the expectations which others had from you?
So it was this was the toughest thing for me to do. But as I said, I have been extremely fortunate, and I've gotten far more than I deserved, Vivek. And what had happened was that while again I was on the top of the Himalayas, when I figured out the purpose of my life, I also figured out something which I love to call the inverted pyramid. Now it's not a very deeply philosophical thing. What I figured out was a kind of an inverted pyramid in the sense that I remembered one of the statements that J.N. Tata had made. And what J.N. Tata said was that wealth should be distributed, but to distribute wealth, you should first create it. And when I was thinking about my life, and I remember recalling at that moment when I had this moment of epiphany that you can give to people only what you have. You can't give to people what you do not have. So if you do not have wealth, you obviously cannot give wealth to others. But this runs far more deeper, Vivek. If you are not happy, you cannot make other people around you happy. If you don't love yourself, you will never ever have the ability to love others. And the moment I realized this, I said, invert the pyramid. I'm not going to live up to other people's expectations because I will not be able to do anything for them unless I have done something for myself. So only if I am happy can I make others happy, because then I have this smile on my face all the time. If I'm healthy, what Swami Vivek Yogi keeps telling me, only then will I be able to do things for others if I don't take care of myself. So many people may think that the fact that I spend 1.5 hours every day exercising, either doing yoga or gym or walking or anything, but I give 90 minutes to my body. Now, somebody might say this is an act of vanity because you're obsessed with your body. No, I'm not obsessed with my body. I'm obsessed with my fitness. And why? Because only if I'm fit, I'll be able to do things that I wish to do with my life. And that realization, Vivek, once it came to me in my mind, it became very clear that I have to first of all live up to my expectations And only then will I be able to do things. And everyone around me, if they truly love me, they will be happy when they see happiness on my face.
Very
Thank you,
good.
doctor. That was extremely inspiring to me. I
Thank
get
you,
it.
Vivek.
Thanks indeed. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
You too.
Vivek. Thank you, Vivek. We have worked together in Europe, US, and Asia Pacific, multiple countries. And there was a time when we used to be told, what will you teach us? But then we proved that what we can teach them. Kamesha ji, are you there? Or Udichi Zada from Afghanistan, you want to ask a question? Quick. I unmute you. Onichi Zada.
What we can do, Mr. Bakshi, is that you have my number. I'll send you my email, and people who have questions can actually send it to me through email or through WhatsApp, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay.
Since I'll have to change from this to my other meeting mode.
Yeah. In fact, in case we go with you for 4 hours, even that is less. But before we really close, I would like in Narula, the Thai Sikh, 4 generations in Thailand, and he's part of my global talent director of Bangkok, to propose a quick vote of thanks. Achan in Savadikap, your vote of thanks quick. We can keep on talking with Dr.
Yes.
for hours together. So much of learning. Yes, Achan.
Yes. Can you hear me? Namaskar ji.
Namaskar, Sadika.
Sawadee Kap. Oh, you have been to Thailand, Dr. Rai.
Of course I have.
Oh,
Well, I'm very happy to learn that. And in the process, Global Talent, Dr. Bakshi and myself would also like to invite you to Thailand, perhaps to listen to your discourse here also. You can be talking to the businessmen here and also kids and, of course, from universities. I was one vice rector of a local university, Assumption University, run by the Catholic, very well known and very advanced here in Thailand. And we would like you to be there also.
Certainly.
Well, yes, let me begin then by thanking Dr. Himanshu Rai. In the name of all the participants this evening, you have given us a beautiful talk, many lessons that we have learned from you.
Thank you.
Now, let me try to sum it up. And in the interest of time, I'm going to keep it very short. We all need to have vision. We all need to have purpose. We all need to have goals. Because when you have vision, purpose, and goals, we are not going to be wasting time and energy on the drama of life because we know what we want. And in the process of getting what we want, what we are going to do is to have the courage to make the decision. Once you make the decision, and if it's a mistake, you make a U-turn, you turn around, have the courage to admit and learn from it. And that's very important. Move on. Remember, we all need to be adaptable with the time. Adaptability is the key to success. Adaptability is the key of a great leader. And as a great leader, what is very important is you must lead from the front. Unless and until you show me what you can do, I'm not going to follow you. So I come up with the word leadership by example. And that's very important. And we hear that from you, Dr. Rai, very loudly and clearly. Thank you. Also, very importantly, be a perpetual learner. Appreciate diversity. Keep the child within us alive. Be curious. Dream big. Start small. Have a game plan to achieve your vision, purpose, and goals. Condition yourself. Be competitive. Not with others, with yourself. You today have to be better than you yesterday. Keep this in mind and you can never go wrong. Let me conclude by, we all must turn our scar into stars. In closing remarks, Dr. Rai, thank you thank you, thank you, thank you, and a great thank you. And look forward to seeing you in
Thank you.
person, sir. Namaskar.
Thank
ji.
Kapun Khab, Achan in, thank you very much. At the end, I would like to say, Dr. Rai, it has been an amazing, beautiful talk. It will carry on, it will get circulated, people will keep on talking. And I would like to salute you from my side. And I would like to say you are an example of leadership in action because you take a lot of actions, quick actions, and decisions, irrespective of all odds. And the way you take action, the way you move forward, the way you ignite passion and commitment of people around you to make this nation great. We salute you for this. And I would say that खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तदबीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है बता तेरी रजा क्या है. You are exactly like that. You have made yourself so strong that even the God is saying, what do you need, Dr. Rai? What do you need, Dr. Rai? What do you need, Dr. Rai?
You are too kind. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. We'll remain in touch.
Absolutely. Mr.
God
Bakshi.
bless you. Make our nation great. Global talent vocally and locally.
I'll
Salute
do
you.
my best.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bakshi. Namaskar, Dr. Rai.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Take care, all
Bye
of you.
bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks
Have a great
everybody for
evening.
joining and good night.
Good
And
night.
good day.
Good night. Good night, all.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.